What's going on, guys? Welcome to Victims and Villains. If you guys are new to our content, we create content like what you're watching right now simply to educate and engage individuals like yourselves on mental health awareness and suicide prevention through pop culture. My name is Captain Nostalgia and I feel amazing. It's a little Easter egg for this movie. Watch it when it streams. You'll get more of an appreciation for this movie. I don't know. We'll talk about it. Podcaster, I'm a writer, and I am the film festival director for Horrific Hope. If you guys would like more information on what we do, more movie reviews like this, podcast links to our social media, Patreon, this year's selection for our Horrific Hope Film Festival 2022, and most importantly, our mental health resource library. All of those links are going to be in the show notes below. Today we're going to be talking about The Seed. Seed tells the story of three social media influencers who go off into the desert to watch a meteor shower and to do a photo shoot. Things go awry and they encounter an alien and their lives get twisted upside down. I know, my motto for this channel has been the less you know. Once again, for The Seed, the less you know. I say that this movie, it starts off really slow. It has a really slow pace, and there are things about the pacing in this that I thought were fun. It sets up a good dynamic between the three actresses. Lucy Martin, Sophie, Vavasseur, the Edge. Pacing of this movie is slow, and it needs to be slow for the WTF third act of this movie. I've seen a lot of alien invasion movies. I've seen Invasion of the Body Snatchers and other movies that are like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And this movie has elements of those things, and there are predictable moments that you will find throughout the course of this movie. That in all of those predictable moments, some of which lie within the second act. But I'm also going to say that even though you predict elements of this movie, you're not going to be able to predict the third act. The third act helps this film and defines and shapes this film as a truly unique movie. Here is the writer and director on this movie, and I will also say this, is that Sam does a great job at creating misdirection while also feeding into genre tropes. Demonstrates that he's both a fan of the genre but also wanting to push the genre into new boundaries that we haven't seen. I'd say also too, a lot of websites when you look up this movie are going to classify this as a horror sci-fi comedy. While the horror and the sci-fi are definitely here, comedy is another thing entirely. Because comedy is so subjective and comedy is such a hard genre to master and critique, I'm going to say, and I will be, that this could just be me. And if you have a different experience with this movie, I would love to know. Comment below. My face was like that the entire time. I did not laugh once during this movie, and that is no fault of Walker or the comedy in this movie. It's not my cup of tea. This to me doesn't work as a comedy, it works as a sci-fi horror film. On the topic of talking about the genre plays of this movie, as I said, the first two acts of this are slow, and once you kind of get further into the movie, the second act, it doesn't necessarily drag, but it does necessarily kind of walk into familiar territory, so you are kind of guessing as you're going along. But the third act of this movie just opens up the universe of this entire story. This is where the film becomes visually, aesthetically pleasing. I mean, it is bright colors and has such a wide color palette that quite literally eclipses almost all the colors of the rainbow. That the rest of the film doesn't look spectacular throughout because the first two acts of this movie look gorgeous. I think having it is set against the summer and desert backdrop works really well for this film. It definitely sucks you in. It kind of almost borders atmospheric horror a little bit. Again, once you kind of get into some of the weirder elements of this movie, it is not only not only visually pleasing, but also from a practical effects standpoint, this movie works spectacularly well. I would hearken some of the character design to this movie to 1980s classic Pumpkinhead. I know that might be a little bit of a weird thing to say once you watch this movie, but to me, that's kind of what the character reminded me of. I would love to know what the character reminded you of. So weirdly enough, Thanksgiving too. I'm gonna say, out of every performance in this movie, not only does this movie work really well, the performances are good in this movie. Don't get me wrong, but it is Lucy Martin that truly commands the screen for this one. Like, her character feels the most developed, but also at the same time, her as an actress shows the most amount of range and depth than the other two actresses. And there's just something about her that she just knows how to command the screen, and I was just electrified by her performance, watching it unfold from this kind of cliche social media influencer to where her character ends up in the end. Like, wow. I'm probably gonna stop now before I ruin this movie. So let's put this movie through our Rorschach rating scale. The Seed is gonna land at a 3.5. This movie is pure enjoyment. It is a mind F and a half. Just great performances all around. It's marvelously paced, but it is some of the problems within the third act that kind of hold it back from being a better movie. Paying love to the genre of sci-fi and horror both, it kind of holds itself back from its true potential. But all in all, it is still a great time and a memorable movie, and I highly recommend this movie. You guys can stream The Seed on Shudder exclusively beginning March 10th. Not signed up for Shudder, we'll provide a link in the descriptions below where you guys can rectify that. Let's talk about a mental health moment. Mental health moment is where we take a theme of mental health and bring it out into the light in hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health for just a few moments. What I like about the third act is the Chelsea Edge's character, Charlotte, is kind of throughout the film, she is kind of depicted as kind of the outsider. And then you have Sophie Vavasseur's character, Heather, and Lucy Martin's character of Deidre. And you can kind of see how they like Charlotte, but they only accept her because of, like, almost kind of like she got grandfathered into the friendship. Like, they were once completely different people before social media popularity hit in, and then they just kind of grew into that, and she just kind of stayed grandfathered in from, friendships. Hopefully you get what I'm saying. Definitely a cautionary tale, because you see throughout the film the juxtaposition of the three and more or less of the 2 versus 1 dynamic. This proves that while, yes, it is valuable for your mental health to have friends and a community, it is even more valuable for your mental health to have healthy friends and a healthy community. Friends for the sake of having friends isn't necessarily a great thing, because those friends, quote unquote friends, can be truly detrimental to your mental health, maybe not in the present, but further down the line. Whereas having friends and a community that you can actually grow with through the tough times actually is going to be better for your mental health, and it shows you who's actually going to stick with you through thick and thin. Yeah, it's great to laugh and rejoice and be friends with people and be merry, but it's another thing entirely to have people in your community that are actually going to stand by you during hardships, heartbreak, depression, suicidal ideation, addiction. That list goes on and on and on. I can honestly say that for some of the hardest times in my life, the reason that I have been able to make it through those hard seasons have been because of friends that I've surrounded myself with that have cultivated a healthy community for me to grow with. Some of the people that I talk to literally on a daily basis, some of the people that I work with here with Victims and Villains, and some of the people that I started Victims and Villains with have some of the healthiest and strongest relationships because we've endured hardships together. Stay with me. It's not just friends for friends' sake, but it's community for healthy community and actually caring about someone and wanting to see someone succeed and grow. Make sure that you have someone in your corner that's going to champion you and is going to stand by you regardless of the good times and the bad times. That is the key to growing healthy in your mental health. I want to encourage you that if you or someone you know is struggling with suicide, depression, self-harm, or addiction, check out our mental health resources. Links are in the show notes below. And most importantly, take care of yourself. The Seed is exclusively streaming beginning this Thursday, March 10th, exclusively on Shudder. Hope you guys have a great one, and come back and let me know what you guys thought about this weird sci-fi epic movie in the notes below. Comments below. Have a great night, guys.